Great, Ray Flynn. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, Talking Sport with Stan, Ray. It's a pleasure to have you on. I feel very privileged now to be in conversation with you, and I'm really looking forward to our chat.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for reaching out.
Not at all, not at all. I said it was. I'm glad I did, and I suppose if probably if circumstances were different now, you'd probably be a harder man to track down, just with the way everything is at the moment.
Well, maybe if circumstances were different, I'd be in Longford this week. But
Yeah, you were due back in July, weren't you?
I'm normally over there. Yeah,
Yeah,
sometime in July. Yeah, so it's strange not to be. It's strange to be here this time of year. That's for sure.
I know. And how is everything over in Tennessee at the moment?
It's a little bit of the Wild West here, because the southern states in the U.S. have been sort of resistant to complying, and people not wearing masks, and the diseases sort of came late here, and now it's starting to spread. So even though we live in a wide open, area, it's our numbers are going up, and as I say, it's there are mixed messages, and yeah, we probably haven't hit the worst yet here, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, look, it's no different here, to be honest. Like a lot of mixed messages, and it's changing from week to week. And you have, like you said there, you have people who are complying, and
Yeah.
you have people then are the complete opposite.
Yeah, that's true. Well, of course, unfortunately, our leadership in this country sort of sends the mixed messages themselves. So
Yeah,
that makes it harder for, and people are divided. And then we have an election coming up here in the next 100 days. And so people use it and are, they're on either side of the fence, and the people who don't listen to science and
I know. Oh,
what
and
have you.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly, exactly.
frustrating.
It's
Yeah.
frustrating because you can't. There's such a barrier there, isn't it? You can't
Yeah.
either side can't communicate normally. They're so
Yeah,
strong-minded at their
people
own
are
thing, and
so polarized now, which is
yeah,
really unfortunate, and especially in this country now. It's
one
I'm
extreme or the
hoping
other.
for better days ahead.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're president and CEO of your company, Flynn Sports Management, Ray, and you had your normal schedule was quite hectic. You were due in Tokyo last month. Would it be right in saying that?
we would be going there now. We
Yeah,
would be
now
there now. Yeah,
and
because the
then
games were going to begin. Yeah, just like in a week's time. So we'd be just on our way down there right now.
yeah, and then
So
you were hoping to get back to Ireland. And I suppose before we go any further, I remember I read an interview actually with you before. You talked about there's an awful lot of travel involved in your work, and sometimes, like, especially with family time, I'm sure is quite it's quite restricted due to all the
yeah,
movement. Have you found
yeah.
that being a blessing sort of in the last while, where you've got more quality time?
Yeah, it is. Well, probably a lot of people are finding the same thing, that they are at home more, and so there is a benefit. You're sort of on a forced holiday. Being if you are in a job or a business where you're traveling a lot, it is if you really look at it the other way and say, well, I'm getting to spend more time. Our youngest daughter has gone off to university, and we're getting to spend a lot of time with her this summer before she leaves, because we'll be seeing her off soon. So that
That's
is a
great.
great benefit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Do
but
you find yourself reevaluating things, or do you
yeah, I think everybody does a little bit.
yeah.
It's given. It's definitely a time for thinking these days. People
Mm,
are having to regroup and think. I mean, I think what comes out of this, people will probably do business differently, and we'll have a different mindset, and so there will be some maybe benefits that come out of it. But it's certainly been a time for forced reflection for everyone. That's for sure.
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. Completely agree. So look,
Yeah.
Ray, we'll get stuck into the amazing career, obviously, as a retired middle distance runner. Am I correct in saying you ran a total of 89 sub 4 minute miles? Is that a correct figure? 89.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
With your best time of 3 minutes 49.77 seconds in July '82 in Oslo, the Norway Bislett Games, the Dream Mile.
Yes, that's right.
Um, I suppose when we go back to the start, Ray, back here in lovely Longford, and as a senior in Mells, you were a winner of the Irish School Championship at 1,500 meters. Just before that, what was it like? your route to athletics. Could you talk to me a bit about that, or how, like when that moment came around where you were like, I'm a good runner?
Yeah, funny enough, it came about. I think I always ran a lot. I was very active as a child. I was always running places. Back in those days, you were maybe walking or running to school, and so I had early memories of always being in a hurry places and always running places. So I was definitely had that in my genes, and that was I loved running
Mm,
when I was a little boy. But I think when I was going to Mills, I think the definition time was my second year there. There was an annual cross country race there, and every young boy wants to be a good sportsman. And I played a little soccer and Gaelic, but I wouldn't say I was really very good. And among your peers at the time, it's definitely defining to be a good sportsman, and certainly at that time, certainly to be on the college team would have been a huge upside at Mel's at those days.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I went out for the cross country race and I won it, and I couldn't believe it as a second year. And of course, instantly, then it gives you a great momentum and a great encouragement to be good at something, because we all want to be good at something. And there were good mentors there. Father Brady was one of those that really sort of took me under his wing and pushed me along. And then when you're good at something like this, and I started training, and I would, even though I didn't really know much what I was doing, I started to run every day, and that's how it started.
and like at that time in Mel's, like obviously, you talk about you played a bit of the other sports. It would have been quite difficult to, avoid them in a way. Was there many like yourself that just loved running, loved focusing on that aspect? And was it difficult not to play the other sports?
It wasn't difficult. I just, you have to be good enough to make the
Yeah.
team. And so, with all due respects, I really wouldn't be good enough, to
Mm.
be a player on the teams there. And but there really weren't many people wanting to run. I mean, I found myself running around the senior field 30 times a day, maybe in
Wow.
circles, and probably people made a little fun, thinking, "What's he doing?" But yeah, I started just training, and there were people in the town who were very influential, who really helped me. We started a running club
Mm.
back in the late '60s, and my dad was one of those, Paddy, and people like PJ Quinn, and people in town, Michael Wall, Father
Yeah.
Brady, as we say, and there were various other people who really were instrumental. So we started a little running club, Longford Athletic Club at the time, and there were some other runners, friends of mine who started to run there too, and but that's how it all started. But running it's an individual sport. We like to make it a team sport, but I enjoyed just training, and I did a lot of it on my own. And but people did help me. They really did help me, and they got me places. And eventually, I was able to get to bigger races and go to coaching courses, and Dublin and different places. And so I definitely did avail, and was fortunate to have people in my life in Longford who helped me a lot.
Yeah, you mentioned before the Father Peter Brady did a lot of research for you as regards seeking out expertise, and PJ Quinn interviewed you to interval training at one stage,
He
did he?
did, he did, he
And
did,
what
and
what, what
it
did
was
that entail, Ray?
well,
At that time?
PJ is a really good friend of mine, and PJ would have read a lot,
Yeah,
and he loved running too, and he just told me, hey, this is the kind of training you should do. And it was pretty simple, but it was giving me ideas that I didn't know very much. Now, of course, I did have a love for the sport, and so you know, my earliest recollections are watching the Olympic Games in 1968 with Dad, watching, Mexico City, and we loved watching running together. But PJ would have given me ideas in training in terms of what an interval training is, running 200 on, 200
yeah.
off, 400 on, 400 off. And so I learned, and it was nice to have the support of people like him and Michael Wall, people like that in the town that were excited about running. And I'd like to see a young boy running. which was great.
Yeah, and important for you as well, like that there was a switch up in your training, because as a young lad, running that amount of laps, as you were saying in secondary school, I'm sure it could get very tedious after a while, and it was refreshing to come across these new techniques as well.
Yeah, for sure. It really made a difference, and just to have a little support, to have people cheering you on a bit, and there was a group of people who loved running in the town, and I think as there always is going to be, and they liked seeing a young lad trying to get better.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to hear that. Like, I know PJ myself actually, but it's great to hear people like that took an interest and recognized talent, and offered to help, because it was very important, because you would have lacked direction really otherwise, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, even there's I don't know if you know Tommy Real. So I would go up to
Oh yeah,
the train station, and Tommy and Michael Waller working there, and they would just give you encouragement. And Tommy was a very good runner in his day, and these older runners who saw a young fella running, they just wanted to give you advice, and I like the association with it, and one thing leads to another. That's just how, I suppose, that's how life works. But
yeah,
you get introduced to people, and get a chance to run against the better athletes, and open some doors.
yeah. Really brilliant to hear that. Now, the encouragement. It's a constant message in all sports, even to this day. Words of encouragement from people,
It
and
is, and I think in every community there are going to be those mentors that really reach out and help you, and I'm sure they're still there today. And in fact, I see them, because the generation now running the club are doing a great job there.
fantastic people involved. Yeah, there really is.
Yeah.
So take me up to the point then where the 1500 meters at Great Britain Championship, and then obviously your scholarship came on board. So obviously you were a few years in preparation for that.
Yeah, it all happened suddenly. My senior year at Mel's, I kept training, and we were in the Connacht schools at the time, so I won that, and then I won the Irish schools, and then I went to represent Ireland in the British schools championships. And I was a little intimidated when I went to Meadowbank in Edinburgh, and but lo and behold, I won that race, and then suddenly all these scholarship offers to go to America came flooding in, and the Leddies, PJ and Ed Leddy from Leitrim,
Leitrim then.
and both of them had attended school in Tennessee, so both of them came to my house and recruited me, and it was a sort of a defining, where I went to school. I did have offers because I got good suddenly. A lot of the American schools, like the bigger schools, had already spent their money, and they said, "Well, we can pay for you to come in January." But I was so eager to go in August that I just wanted to go, and it's almost like I didn't care where I went. I just wanted to be. I was hungry to run and to be better. And of course, the ladies came and visited, and because they came from close by from Leitrim, I think it was reassuring to my parents too, that if they could do it, then you could go too. And I was the oldest of a big family, so I was excited to go.
Yeah, and it's nice. It was nice, I'm sure, to have somebody so close, and to hear their word. It kind of was reassuring that you weren't going into the complete unknown.
Yeah, yeah, and at that age, you're right. You're ready for a new challenge. But yeah, it was good to know. It was good to meet people that actually had been there and returned.
Mm. Like, well, you're a believer that's what takes you to the next level. You said that even recently in relation to, I noticed the question has been posed that why do you think athletes nowadays are, they're with so many advances in training, that your record is still held, and you've often alluded to that next step of going to America has been a
Yeah, it
crucial
was,
factor.
and make no mistake, it was really hard, especially the first
Yeah,
2 years, but the first year especially. But I think not being able to just come home, and sometimes you just have to work it out and work through it. It's sort of like being in a boot camp. Maybe nowadays people have more money and they can just come home when they please, and it's easy to sort of jump ship if it's not going well. But uh, there
you
was
had that
definitely a
option.
belief. Yeah, that I didn't have that option, and there was definitely a belief that I was really following in the footsteps of many great athletes who had gone ahead of me, and so the list is very long.
Mm.
And there was an excitement about that because that's where then the great athletes were made at that time. Certainly, with whether it started with Delaney and John Joe Barry and all these people who went before, and then of course in the more recent times before then, Neil Cusack, where I came to Tennessee, had won the Boston
Yeah,
Marathon, and
that's right. Yeah.
Coughlin was at Villanova, and John Hartnett, and all these. There was a string of great Irish runners. It was the thing to do, and I was excited to follow in their footsteps.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was such a. It was such a change for you, and I know, like, friend of yours as well, Frank Greeley. He mentioned his autobiography about the struggle of it over there in the first, in the first couple of years. It's such
Yeah,
a culture shock, I'm sure. And
yeah, it is that.
you
But
talked about the campus. You were training on how it would be empty at the weekends. You'd just be left with your
yeah,
training partners, really. And
I think the single biggest challenge when I came to America was definitely the volume change, because it wasn't very scientific. And
mm,
just in very simple terms, I would be probably running 35 to 40 miles a week when I was at Max back in Longford before I ever left. And immediately then they doubled it to 90 miles a week, or up to 100 miles a week. And I
unbelievable.
was really struggling just even to survive the first year, because that's just how they trained. It was
Mm.
all for one, and they just all went out in a bus together and ran back in 10 miles and did track work after that. And it was but it was sort of making you stronger, even though you didn't see it at the time. It took its you just had to work through it and just serve your time, and that's really what I was doing.
And did you find you just got to a certain point where you were just programmed differently then?
Well, it did take a long time, to be
Mm,
fair. I mean, it took 9 months or whatever before I went through a tough spot when I got to the new year, but I was still only, because I went at 17. So
mm.
the coach at the time, he was, well, if you don't get better, we may have to send you home. And
Just Dave
I think
Walker.
yeah, Dave Walker. Well, and we became great friends, of
Yeah.
course, over the years then. But I think the volume was just so hard on me that I was struggling, and he finally gave me a break in early May of my first year there, 1975, and let me train on my own for a couple of weeks. And then, of course, I broke the school record by 10 seconds, and then I was down to a 4:03 mile. So I think he saw it then, that it was there. It just,
Yeah.
you have to kind of work with it a little bit differently with each athlete.
The talent, yeah, because I'm sure when you were back here at that time, you were running 30 miles a week. There wasn't probably too many guys doing that. Like, very, very,
No,
very lonely
yeah,
road, very lonely game.
yeah, yeah. No, nobody was doing that where I was when I was in certainly in Longford, and it was different. But I took solace though in just seeing the future ahead and the encouragement of people, and what could be. And so I got uh, encouragement from running well in the races then, so I could see myself improving. So that's the wonderful thing about running. It's solitary, but you get a defined um, uh, you know assurance that you're on the right track when you win a race, or when you run a good time, or you're going to run a good race.
Yeah, and you were representing, obviously your family and the great people that instilled belief in you from a young age as well. I'm sure you never forgot them when you were
Yeah, oh yeah.
out there in your training.
I've had, yeah. So I've been very fortunate. I have, you know, I you know, I probably could have done a lot better as a runner, but I have no regrets. And you just you take your shot at it, and do your best. And it's a journey, and that's really what it's all about. Especially when you get older and you see it was really more the journey than because the times and the accolades are relative in hindsight, because
Mm.
there are always new stars and new champions, and that's what it's all about.
It's very interesting to hear you saying that, like, considering like your achievements and your incredible times, unbelievable times. Like, when you say you could have done better, in what aspect do you mean? Or
Well, I probably over raced, and I think I probably didn't. I lacked a little direction as I got older, sort of a little bit being maybe too headstrong, and I wish in hindsight that I probably didn't race as much and was more focused. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, these are just my thoughts as I look back.
Yeah, but I suppose guidance was different then too, and the education, I suppose, and as you were saying, like, that was the way you were running 100 miles a week, and it was make or break, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, it was definitely a free-for-all circuit back. Even when I finished college, then we just went on the circuit, racing constantly, and with almost no stop. And probably the thing that was lacking then was a more scientific approach to really focusing on championships. And because my record at championships was not that good, even though I was an Olympic finalist, you know, I didn't have, the medals that
Mm.
other athletes had. And so if I look back critically, I could I could show that up.
Yeah, but look at it's your times are incredible, but it's really interesting to hear, to hear that aspect of it. And like at one stage, I'm sure, like you were, when you were breaking that mile nearly every week, you had a race nearly on every week, hadn't you?
Yeah, well, at that time we might be running 50 races in a year, and so yeah, it
Unbelievable.
was definitely in the summertime a couple of races a week. So we raced constantly and traveled a lot, almost like a circus or a circuit. And yeah, it was busy.
And what was your, like, from one race to the next? What was the recovery like back then, or like would there be much talk
Well,
about
you'd pretty
recovery?
much, yeah, if you were racing, yeah, you'd pretty much be just running maybe 40 minutes the day, between races and just travel days. So essentially you wouldn't be able to train as much or train very very little during the high racing season.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and the whole mental game. Would there have been much work done around sports psychology back that time,
Not
Ray?
really.
Not really,
Not
no.
really, no. You had to figure it out yourself. And yeah, it was a very mental game.
Mm,
But confidence comes from training well and racing well. So the better you trained and the better you raced, then the more confident you got. So I would say that, look, I mean, it would be great to have had that psychological assistant with more professional help. But certainly there's no substitute for training well, because that gives you confidence, and deep down that you're going to do well if you have done the work in training.
yeah, yeah, it's good to take a reassurance in it. And like the mid '80s was a great period for Irish runners. I was just from a bit of research myself. Eamon Coughlin won gold at 5,083 World Championships. That's correct.
That's right.
Yeah,
He did. Yeah,
John Tracy was another name. A silver a year later in the Olympic marathon.
that's right.
Frank O'Mara gold in 3,000 meters World Indoor Championships in 1987,
Yes,
and then Marcus O'Sullivan won the 1,500 meters at the same championship.
yes. That's
And
all. That's all true.
yeah, and prior to that, and actually before I go on that, yourself and Frank Greeley were in a band together, were you over there in Tennessee?
Well,
Or
you probably remember your college days, but we were poor. Even though we had scholarships when we came over here to run at the university, we didn't have any extra pocket money. So before I ever ran, I was a very good. Well, I played the accordion and the guitar, and we had a little band,
brilliant,
and there were a lot of Irish runners over here. So we'd sing Irish songs and go around, and we'd go to local places and get a little pocket money. So it helped. So there were good times, and
great link to home too.
Frank loved to sing all the old ballads. Yeah,
That was brilliant, I thought. Yeah,
yeah,
it's great for camaraderie as well.
yeah. Friendship. Yeah,
And you obviously broke your first mile at the Penn Relays. Is that correct?
that's right.
In 1977, and your time was
Yes.
3:59.4.
Yeah, well, with middle distance running, running under 4 minutes for a mile is it's a bar that that good runners really want to do.
Mm,
And back since Bannister did it in 1954, You know, it's always, and I love the history of the mile, especially, and following how it evolved. And so, of course, that was always a goal of mine. And so I first broke it in 1977 at Penn Relays, and it's a big deal. It's always going to be a big deal for any runner. It's a sort of a measure of how good you are, and so it was great to break that barrier. I remember it well.
I'm sure it was. Like, it's like for the likes of myself, it's incredible. Like, it really intrigues me. Like, it's you know, it's obviously seems like the impossible, but it's such a like, the more I think about it, and you know, before I started this chat with you, I was thinking about all the times you've broken it, you know, and trying to comprehend that level of running. It's very difficult for myself, and I'm sure many
Well,
others.
like everything in life, though, people who are specialists in whatever they do, whether
Mm.
it's music or whether it's running or football or anything, I think if the more you do it and that you raise to a certain level, it's I don't want to say it's easier, but certainly the mindset is there, and you're mentally and physically able to do it. And so I think once you are at that level, then I think it happens often. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure when you broke the first one, it was such a progressive step for you. I'm sure, like, you were, you know, it was such a barrier to break down, and then after that, it was like, okay, I'm going to continue to shave time off this now the best way I can, and
Yeah,
keep
the
driving.
beautiful thing about running is there's a validation, because you know, part of the reason I was attracted to running, you know, when you're young and there's football games, and sometimes it's tied scores or nobody really, or even when you see, my sisters used to go to dance competitions, and I was even at feshes when I was a child with the music, and it's a judgment thing. But the beautiful thing about running is you can win a race, or you can run a fast time in a race, and so you have a validation that's very defined. And so that's the beautiful thing about running, and as you see yourself improve, it gives you a great wind behind your back to go forward, because you can see the improvement you're making, and it's very tangible.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
completely get that. Yeah. In 1981, Ray, then you finished. Well, obviously, Eamon Coughlin's name comes up quite a bit. Obviously, you were great competitors, like, you know, over the years, in the Wanamaker Mile. Now, had you participated in that before 81?
No,
No. So was
no,
that your
that would have
first?
been the first. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It was actually just,
Yeah.
I didn't realize the history in the Wanamaker Mile actually till I looked into it and researched it, and where it
Yeah,
got
it's a
its
very
name
famous.
from.
It's a very
Yeah,
famous mile. Yes,
yeah, it
yes,
really is.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like, you and your company have played a massive part in the Millrose Games and rejuvenating that as well.
yeah. I mean, my earliest recollection running in Madison Square Garden, when you run the Wanamaker Mile, and people like before even Eamon won it. I mean,
Mm.
Delaney had run it and won it, and they would turn the lights down at Madison Square Garden and sing the national anthem, and then the lights would come back up, and you could feel the hairs on the back of your neck, stand on the back of your neck. With it was certainly yeah, a surreal race, and certainly I have a lot of fond memories from my first time even running it. Yeah,
Yeah, sounds amazing. And like, the Wanamaker Mile came from Rodman Wanamaker, is that correct?
yeah, that's
Yeah, and
right. We watched the Clockmaker. Yeah.
it's kind of well, it's kind of associated with him, that's where, you know, the recognition or standing for the national anthem kind of came about. I don't know how true that is, but it is said, isn't
I
it?
don't know that, but
Mm.
certainly what's unique about at Millrose Games every year, and it's always been the way, that the national anthem is not played at the beginning of the games.
Okay.
It's played before the last race, which is the Wanamaker Mile.
All right.
So
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
which is unusual. Like when you go to a football game or you go to any kind of event, you'll hear the national anthem before the event starts.
Yeah.
But they would always play the national anthem before the Wanamaker Mile. I don't know what year that tradition started, but it certainly it makes an impression. There's great excitement in the arena, and then they turn the lights down, they sing the national anthem, and then they turn it on, and there's the athletes are lined on the track.
Yeah, it's a
It was
huge part of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a bit of a show, but it's good.
But no, but it definitely has to, as you've just alluded to there, the effect it had on you as an athlete. We can all relate to that when our national
Yeah,
anthem is played at different stages in our
yeah,
career. It gives you
sure.
a little extra
Goo-
something. Yeah, but
Goosebumps, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for
yeah,
sure,
that
yeah,
that extra 10% in performance. But
yeah.
um, in finishing second in the Wanamaker Mile, was that a? Did you find that a motivation to you going forward?
Well, I mean, I would say yes, but I think a lot of races gave me a motivation going forward.
Mm,
I mean, again, looking back, I never won the Wanamaker Mile. I mean, Eamon and Marcus have won it, 7 and 8 times between. I mean, Eamon won it 7 times, and Marcus has won it 6 times. So, I was a very good indoor runner, and I
mm,
have had all kinds of records, but I never won the Wanamaker Mile. And but it was great to be part of it. It was great to be part of that, and I feel like I pushed when Eamon did win that day, and other days that he also won.
mm.
I was always pushing the pace and being part of that. And I look, it's a race, and but each race gave me encouragement and moved me forward.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and just when every every runner wants to win, at the end of
Yeah,
the day as well. Yeah,
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
that's everything. And then obviously a year later, then Ray, on 7th July 1982, you have the famous day in Oslo, and there was a lot of, I suppose, a lot of the racers that day all had different targets, and was Steve Scott that finished first in that race, was it?
Yes, and
Mm.
and what was remarkable about that race is so Steve won, and he missed the world record by a couple of tenths of a second, 3:47.6.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And John Walker was second. He was the Olympic champion in '76. He was second in 3:49.08, which was the New Zealand record, and it still stands. And then, of course, I set the national record that night, 3:49.77. And so, yeah, that night was historic for us all.
Yeah, can you describe your feeling after that? Like, it must have been
Well,
disbel.
it was euphoric. I was amazed, but I also had broken the national record 2 weeks earlier in another race in Oslo. So I felt like I ran 3:50 point for the mile 2 weeks earlier. So I always knew that I figured on the right in the right race at the right time and the right night I could run sub 3:50 for the mile. And it was great validation of for me personally. Yes, it's I think it's the single best achievement that I have accomplished.
It's incredible, and the 1500-meter record in the same race. It's incredible even to this day to see it still standing so strongly, because
Yeah,
it really
yeah.
is
I'm surprised that
phenomenal.
they have lasted so long. The 1500 particularly, because the mile, I would say, is run less these days than back
Mm,
then. You have less miles, more 1500s.
yeah,
So I could see the mile last of the 1500. I thought would go, but it hasn't gone. So yeah, I'm surprised. But yeah, I'm proud of them. That's a long time ago. That's 38 years ago now.
yeah. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you hadn't much time to reflect on it. I think you were racing the following weekend, were you, in Mardyke?
I actually raced 2 nights later in Budapest.
You did not.
Yeah. So we would just go like that. We would just get
Yeah.
on the plane the next day, go to the next race. That's just how
There's
we
no celebrating or anything like
no,
that.
no,
No, no.
we didn't. Um, we kept moving.
You hadn't time, I suppose. You were just, you couldn't
That
really.
was
You
the
were,
that was
yeah,
the era. That was the you're young.
yeah.
You're racing. We were on the circuit. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
brilliant. Yeah. I suppose not much time for reflection.
Yeah.
It's just gone. Yeah. And then I suppose every race you're going out, you're still trying to shave even more time off it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there are record races and record opportunities that don't exist other places. And so,
Mm,
really, there were some tracks and very few of them that you went to that you knew that if you arrived there, it would be set up and would be maybe the optimal opportunity to race a fast time. And Oslo with Bislett was one of them.
Okay.
So I think we came to run fast there. Where other races, not saying that you didn't do your best, but it was not the same opportunity. Like I watched a race in Tipperary yesterday online, or 2 days ago, and I was looking at the wind and the boys running around the track, and I was thinking, when it's a windy day back in Ireland, and even in the summertime with a bit of rain, it's hard to run too fast there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. So you need conditions. Sure.
yeah,
It comes down
yeah.
to margins, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Everything
It
matters.
does.
Yeah.
It
Uh,
does. It matters. Yeah.
and you targeted those races. You knew, right? Look at
Well, and just
it's not.
to get a starting place is a big deal, believe it or not, because there's only 10 or 11 spots there. So you have to earn your spot to get even in there.
Yeah,
That's not anything. You just don't show up there and get to run. You have to earn your way in.
yeah, and like the pace around you as well. Like the guys that are running alongside you and the pace they were running at as well. It's like that. Like when you see Steve Scott breaking that time as well, I'm sure every man is pushing himself and every man is believing they can get there as well.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about racing. That's the excitement of being in these races, and they're well set up, and they would have a pacemaker. And but yeah, that's the excitement of getting into the big races, because they'll be ready for you to run fast.
And can I ask, like, because obviously the familiarity of running against these guys so often, like, what was the relationship like with them? Would there be much of a chat at that time after the races, or was it kind of you just went off at your own
Yeah,
group?
no, we were very close friends,
Yeah,
and we would be always together,
yeah,
because it wasn't like it would be. I mean, the only people there that you knew closely would be a lot of those same people in your events, and we tended to race often against each other, and so there would have been a great friendship. And I find myself as I get older, I spent like an hour on the phone with Frank O'Mara yesterday. As we've gotten older, we're very, very close friends. And I talked to John Walker on the phone a couple of weeks ago. He lives in New Zealand, and so we were close friends. So even though we raced hard on the track,
yeah.
um, uh, we were we have lifelong friendships.
It's great to hear that. It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what it's
yeah,
all about at the end of the day, isn't
it
it?
is. It is. Oh yeah, because it's a fraternity, and you really have a lot in common, because you certainly had a lot of experiences together, and you fight hard, and you fought hard against each other. But as you got older, then there's great respect, certainly among us all
Yeah, it was
for
great
each other.
opportunity. It's a great opportunity. It's a very fortunate thing to be able to look back and reflect on
Yeah,
great achievements and great memories.
yeah,
Mm. And between 81 and 83, you ran 44 sub 4 minute miles. Is that correct? Right?
yeah. There was just a lot of racing, and I
Yeah,
don't even remember all the races
I
anymore.
know
They were just
the
they were
volume
just
of it.
yeah, they're just like if you asked a football player about the football games he played in, he probably couldn't tell you.
No, but it's just
you
it's
know, he
just
he knows they happened, but other than that, there's nothing always. Some things stand out more than others. So
yeah.
yeah,
But it's just like I'm sure as we speak, there's so many people across the country who would be striving to break the mile, but striving to break your record, obviously as well.
yeah,
And it's amazing to look at that figure, like and it was such a part of your routine that you were just breaking it so regularly and so often.
yeah,
It's amazing, really.
yeah. But I believe in anything you do if you
Yeah,
practice it, and so you can call it practice, because the more you race at that level, the more whatever you do in your life, the more you do it at a top level against top competition, whether it's sport or work or music, whatever you do, you just get better at it. And I think that's the secret of life. Just surround yourself or be around people who are going fast or going places, and you get up there, and
yeah,
your mindset changes, and you're looking at things differently than how you used to look at it.
of course, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I was just looking at a picture of earlier on there as well. You had the New Balance gear on you. Was New Balance, was that gear that was sponsored to you at the time, or was it just
Yeah,
was it
over the
over own
years,
brand?
several sponsors,
Yeah,
and of course that's a means of how you paid your way, and we got paid to run in the races, but we got money from the sponsors, and it's better now than it was then, but certainly
of
it
course. Yeah,
really it made a difference, and apart from the running in their products or whatever, we had contracts with them.
yeah. There's the professionalism of it as well, But
Yeah,
it's just amazing to see how the gear has changed. Even when I seen you out in the jogging gear in that picture, it's
yeah.
amazing how it's changed. You probably look back and
Well, it
think,
was
God,
funny, because there's 9 children in our family back in Longford, and I remember, my mother and father, they sort of thought I was a little bit mad, to just keep on running. It's like, so I went to university, and it's like, well, now what are you going to do? You got to get a job, and so it took for me to really show that I was actually earning a living at this, where they stopped asking me the questions anymore, But for a while, it was like, look, where is this going? Which makes sense if you're a parent and your son or your daughter is running and they go to university. Now what are you going to do? Are you making any money out of this, or are you going to have to get a real job? And so
especially at that
it
time.
took it yeah, and it took a while to really to get there. But then suddenly I was earning a living at it and doing well, and they were okay then. They didn't bother me anymore.
It was reassuring for them, is right.
Yeah, well,
Um,
Dad was a hard man. He just wanted to make sure that you were going places, and you weren't, you know,
yeah.
that you had a real vision for the future, and then, so he was
Well,
a doubting Thomas sometimes.
it was the unknown for them because I suppose
It was.
there wasn't too many going away like that at the time.
No,
I mean,
no,
what you don't know, you're always going to be curious about. And
that's right.
yeah,
That's right.
and
Yeah,
they look at as any parent, they just want, just want
yeah,
security and safety for the children.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas nowadays there's a lot of opportunities and it's a lot more regular. And
Yeah, it's great that they
mm,
have, college opportunities in Ireland for the young boys and girls coming up. That wasn't there when I was young.
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So before we move to 85, I'd like to talk to you a bit about the Olympics in 84, Ray. You participated in the 5,000 meters in that Olympics, is that correct?
I did. I moved up to the 5,000 in '84. I won the British Championships in the 5,000 that year, and after Eamon won the World Championships in 1983.
Mm.
Some of the milers, like myself, John Walker, we decided to move to the 5,000 for the Los Angeles Olympics, and that was a great it was a great jump, but 5,000 is 3 times as long as a mile. It's 3 miles, and
Yeah, how did you find that
we.
change?
I mean, I was good at it if I had one race, but there were 3 races in the Olympics, and I didn't have the sustainability. I ran the 3 races. I made the final, but I think I didn't have any legs under me when I made the final, the third race, and it certainly. I think there now are only one qualifying for the final. There's not 3 rounds or 2 rounds now, a heat and a final,
Yeah,
and certainly it advantaged the longer distance runners or the more cross country kind of type runners. Certainly, I probably wasn't as prepared as I thought. But look, I made the final and gave it a go, and it was a great experience.
another phenomenal experience as well.
Yeah.
And was a bit of controversy before one of those races? Was there a Finnish runner, Marty Vainio?
Marty Vainio got
Yeah,
pulled, yeah. I mean, look, I think there was probably a lot of doping going on in the era that we were a little bit
yeah,
naive to, and yeah, Vainio had won a silver medal in Los Angeles in the 10,000 meters a few days earlier, and they pulled him then in the corral before the final race of the 5,000 because they had already tested him and he was blood doping. So
mm,
I think in hindsight there were probably a few more boys in those races that were probably not on the up and up. But look, you know there's always going to be some cheating probably somewhere along the line, and you can't. I think they do a better job on it nowadays than they did in the past with blood passports,
Oh
but it
yeah.
exists and it always has existed. But you can't be, you know, you just got to move forward, right, and do the best you can do, because all you can control is yourself.
Yeah, and just hope over time, like with different measures, that eventually
Yeah,
becomes completely eradicated.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's hard, because it's so, again, it's another technical area, and there's so, like, it's amazing when a lot of these things are revealed, like the measures athletes go to, the extremes they go to,
Yeah,
to get
yeah,
extra points.
it's part of the world we live in, and probably there were
Yeah.
always some kind of cheating going on. But yeah, it is discouraging, but it's probably in all sports, and
Oh, of course it is.
especially the more money that becomes involved, then people become more desperate.
And would that have any impact, if any, at that time, just seeing that going on, and some, like a racer of that caliber too being pulled from a race? Does it impact in any way on the rest of
Well,
the?
it would be nice to see them caught,
Yeah.
and so you welcome that, but then and you couldn't discourage yourself so much, because you had to go out there and try and do your best in your own race.
Mm,
But as time has gone on, and I've heard things over the years past,
yeah.
um, then I've wondered about certain people I raced against.
I know. I know.
Yeah,
You would be sure. That's only human as well. It's.
yeah, but it doesn't change. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Mm,
it's a reality of life that sometimes now they're able to go back even up to 10 years and redistribute the medals, but it's sort of you've lost the momentum at that stage. Then
yeah.
yeah,
Of course. Oh,
yeah,
thanks for sharing that, Anya.
yeah,
And obviously, another fabulous achievement the following year, and I said an even a special one too, because you achieved it with friends in the 1984, the four-man squad in Belfield. Yourself, Marcus O'Sullivan, Eamon Coughlin, and Frank O'Mara um, broke the four-time 1 mile record with
yeah,
15:49.99,
yeah.
and you were the anchor in that race. You were assigned that job. Can you just tell me a bit about that, or what it entails or involves? And
Yeah, that was an interesting race, because at the time, I have to give credit John O'Shea, who was a journalist, and he
yeah,
he had a lot of influence in the Gold charity. He sort of corralled us all together. Now, boys, come on, you got to go do this race for me here. He was a good promoter, and I think he had Roach and Kelly cycling against each other in the preview to the race. So he got a great crowd there, and he got the four of us lined up and a few other teams, and said let's try and break the world record, and so we bought into it, and I was in very good shape at the time, and nobody seemed to want to anchor, because I think the thought was, well, what if we're behind? You don't want to be the one with all the pressures on. But anyway, I anchored, but luckily I also had a cushion when they gave me the stick anchoring. I was in a good position, and so the, the 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 amazing thing about relays like that, you're really running solo. So it's not. It looks easier than it really is, because you have nobody to run against, and you're running. See, basically, you're asking everyone to solo 357 miles, which is what happened. And
mm,
so it was a remarkable run, and it unified all of us and brought us closer together. And as time has gone on, that's been a great reflection, and great to be part of it with those great runners.
yeah, I'm sure it was, because you wouldn't have had many opportunities to come together like that either.
No, I mean, rarely do you. I mean, you
Mm,
don't. 4 by mile relays are not run so often, but
no,
there's a reason too, because it's hard to get teams together, and uh, the idea is to try and break a record, and somebody always falls, has a
yeah,
bad run. But this group ran all well, so
it was an
and it was a
incredible
great
time.
crowd that night, and it was great to do it in Dublin, and so there were so many great memories from that night.
Yeah, the pictures look amazing. It must have been some atmosphere.
Yeah, it really was.
Incredible. I'm sure you still talk about it to this day.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
Brilliant, Ray. And then obviously coming home, there's a lovely honour to yourself, and lovely tribute, and the Ray Flynn Mile. I'm sure it's a very, very special thing for you to come home to, and it really is. It's a lovely initiative now, I have to say.
Well, I think it's the bigger thing that's going on there now is that the club is rejuvenated and they have a lot of great leadership there. You know, John Fitzpatrick and the great team he has assembled there, and
Yeah,
they're
great people.
doing great, wonderful things with the young up and coming runners. And I know you're going to ask me about Kean McPhillips, but it's great to see the club with the rejuvenation. So I think that race is just part of something bigger that the club and is expanding and being a bigger part of the community and bringing in all these new young athletes, and it's great to see.
Yeah, I think it's a lovely way to celebrate yourself as well. But it's also an event like that can be the start of something for people as well. Because coming out and running a mile, some people may do it for the first time in their their lives. As a young person, they come out and they run it and they enjoy it and they get a taste for it. And before they know it, they've fallen into this career or they're falling into this journey. It's great that
Yeah,
way too. It can be a great
yeah.
starting point for people.
Well, I think, of course, I have a love affair with the mile, but you know, people have so many people nowadays are running marathons, and
Mm,
I think that's great. But gosh, it's a long race to run, and the beautiful thing about a mile is so many people know how far a mile is. They drive it in their car, they've walked it one or time or the other,
yeah,
and so it's manageable for people of all ages and to do. And so I think mile races are fun, and you can get a great cross section of people from all generations to do it.
and would obviously easier on the body
Yeah,
to a
it is
degree,
easier.
to a degree.
Yeah, it is easier on the
Mm,
body. I mean, you know, you can manage a mile, you can survive a mile. I'd rather run a mile than a marathon. I always say that. That's for sure.
mm,
When I was really young, not many people ran the marathon. It was seen as a really an outlier of an event. I
yeah,
mean, and what's happened in over 30 years, it's become so mainstream, and so it's become its own event, and people are focusing on it. So that's evolved in time, and the
yeah,
marathon now, of course, with mass running, has become super popular. But the mile is still for me, and I think for many, uh, it's a distance that most people can get their head around. They can imagine.
yeah,
If you ask a lot of people how far is a marathon, most of them wouldn't even know that it's 26 miles.
yeah.
But the mile, it's yeah, it's traditional and it's an epic distance.
Mm, I agree. Yeah, you'd sometimes. Now, when I think about what you were saying earlier, when you were younger and you were running on your own here in Longford, it's times have changed so much now, in that there's very seldom, if ever, a day you don't see somebody out running somewhere.
Yeah, and it's nice to
It's
see the canal as a place to run, and the
yeah,
mall, and they've done such a lovely job, fixing
great
it up,
result.
and now people really have places to go.
Yeah,
But the country roads back where I lived, were also great to run. I spent many's a time on the bog roads, and I spent many a time up in Fearafad coming across to the Ballinlee roads and running intervals on those side roads where there was no traffic. And so you can do it's nice and flat in Longford, and it was great for me when I was home to really train hard, even there.
yeah, and I believe even when you do get home now, you still tip out for a run.
I do. I run most days.
Yeah,
I run nowadays. I still run probably 5 days a week, but just to keep fit. I mean, I'm not in great shape, but I'm good enough. I can get out. I
and
get out
and
most
how
days.
how is your mindset doing that? Do you ever, are you, sometimes because of the level you competed at and performed at, did you find, obviously when you eventually retired and
Yeah.
you kept it going, did you find that difficult to,
Well,
that
maybe for a
mindset?
while I did, but
Yeah,
you get humbled over the years, and so when you become just a jogger out there, it's you have to get over all of that and realize you can't run with the big. They have a
yeah,
saying in Tennessee that I never used to like. And so the saying is, it is back here. It says, "If you can't run with the big dogs, stay on the porch." And I always resented that. I'm saying, what kind of a lie? What kind of a saying is that? But now I get it because, don't run with the big dogs, and maybe you have to stay on the porch, if you can't run with those big dogs. So
Yeah.
I run with slow people now. So, but I get out at least.
But look, that's the beauty of it as well. Like it's
Yeah.
it's getting out for a run. There's
It's so
a
important. My mother's 88 years old and she walks every day. And so I think she's blessed to be able to do that. And I think
exactly,
if we
yeah.
can all stay active, one of the great things that's happened in the last 25, 30 years is to see mass running and mass participation and the mindset that you don't have to be elite to be exercising. And what Frank does with the daily mile back in the schools, I think we just need to get everybody being active. And it doesn't matter how little you do. You can be doing, just walk for a little while, but it's good. And our health would be so much better if everybody got out and exercised some. And it's so easy. It's easier to do than people think. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just
Hmm.
getting out there and
Yeah,
getting started with it. So
sure,
start
sure.
small, yeah. But it's
Yeah,
yeah, it's very
yeah,
rewarding. It's good for physical and mental health. It's so
yeah.
important, it really is. Great, Ray, great. Obviously, and your own company, Flynn Sports Management, to fall into that, and I suppose you feel very fortunate in the way that you're still so connected with the game you love, and it's great to be in such a position. I'm sure, obviously, a very demanding and busy one, but is it very rewarding to be, to I'm sure it is, to be doing something you love at the end of the day.
Well, my youngest daughter's going off to university now, and we were talking the other day, and I
Yeah.
said to her, find something. I mean, she has an area she wants to study, and I said, but what you end up doing is if you enjoy what you do, you will be happy and
Mm.
everything will work off of that. So I've been very fortunate, to be able to stay in sport and be around the exciting races and the people and the influencers. And I don't know, I've really enjoyed the journey and been around the sport I love and know a lot about. And so I've been fortunate.
Mm.
But my advice to people always is to find something that you're familiar with and that you have a love for and try and do it. It doesn't matter what it is, but if you follow that rule, you'll probably end up in a pretty good place.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
and not everybody finds themselves in that situation. It's but when you do, yeah, it's so much good for you mentally as well. I think in the long run.
With all those years I spent on the circuit running for 10 years, traveling all over the world, racing myself, what I didn't realize is that I was really learning how to survive and how to be involved in the sport, in the managing of sporting events and sporting athletes,
Yeah,
because we had to fend for ourselves back those times. And it taught me that to keep the connections with all the people around the world in running, and how to uh, open avenues for other people to get into races. And so I uh, built a lot of bridges, and
mm,
it was those formative years that really helped me transition away, into the business of it after I retired.
yeah, it's great foundation, I'm sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
mm, brilliant,
yeah,
and obviously the reinventing the Millrose Games, like giving us such a boost again. We had you had our own Cian McPhillips over there for the 113th Millrose Games, is
yes,
that correct?
yes,
Yeah, in February, and
yes. I
Cian is
was
Cian is one of them. Yeah,
yeah, I was so excited to have him, and he's such a great runner and such a nice young man, and his family came with him, and we had him in the high school division, and he won it handily, and it was
yeah,
lovely to see an Irishman and a Longford man be successful there.
yeah.
And yeah, it was a great weekend, and lovely to see him. I'm excited for his future.
Yeah, it's a lovely moment. Yes, it's funny, isn't it, how it turns out, to get to this stage yourself, and then to have an athlete from, the talent of Cian to come over and be so
Well,
successful as well.
I'm sure I speak for Raymond and Frank and Marcus and all the boys who were, been over here and went to school over here. we love the Irish connection. We love the next generation coming over here and just carrying on the traditions of the great Irish runners, and we want to see that in the future. And
Mm.
there's a great acceptance and excitement when they do come over, and we don't get as many as we'd like to see. So that's why it's really special when Keane would come and race, and now all the American universities are they know who he is, and I'm sure his father Paddy, they're getting lots of calls back there, but that's not a bad thing either.
No, no, it's only the only tough thing. And I had Nelvin Apaya on as well here for a chat, and I think he was due to make a move this year as well, and it's
Yeah,
just unfortunate with circumstances that
yeah,
time is of the essence. I'm sure in athletics and running, and as you said, you made
yeah.
you made your jump so quickly as well, and the quicker you got into it, the better it was for you, and
Yeah, well, at least they have, and Kian has more time now,
yeah,
because he's not even finished school. But at least there's great opportunities over there in Ireland too,
oh,
and
of course, yeah,
the facilities are beyond what I ever imagined. So
mm,
they are very fortunate.
yeah,
But he does have choices now, and that's nice to see.
good headaches to
Yeah,
fight.
good problems to have.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you can clarify this for me. Was there a narrative back in the time involving a Porsche and setting times and a bit of good rivalry between yourself and I'm not sure who was against. Was it Eamon Coughlin or am I
No,
completely
that not to.
off here?
Yeah, I mean, I do know of a Porsche race between two athletes before, but neither of them were us. Neither of them was Coughlin or I. But and I know that Frank O'Mara, when he won the Fifth Avenue Mile, got a Mercedes. But I'm sure Eamon, if he was looking at this car now, he made out pretty well from the sport. He was very successful himself too. But
Because
they
yeah, I heard a little story as regards the person of a car, and on the number plate of the car then was put the time that was achieved in the race that's recorded the
Oh
mileage.
no, you know what it is probably. So on my car, I have on the front a license plate that's made up really with my Irish record. That's on my Jeep right now.
Oh, lovely.
So maybe that's what it was, and somebody had seen but that wasn't like a prize that I won. That was sort of uh, as an ego.
Yeah.
Sorry, of
I
a
guess.
guy driving around with his time on, but that nobody knows, only himself, where I live. So it doesn't mean anything to anybody. Those
Okay.
numbers that are on the front of my license plate would mean nothing to anybody around where I live, unless they were a real avid runner and were really switched on. So it's purely
Oh,
it's purely ego. Yeah.
I just thought it might have been Eamon might have set a time and he did it, and then you might have broken it, and
Well, the
you,
closer thing, maybe the other part that's you need to, that it needs to be said. So I set the Irish record in 1982, and I ran 3 minutes 49 and 77 hundredths. 3:49.77.
mm,
1 year later, in the Meadowlands, New Jersey, Eamon set the world record indoors, and I was second in that race actually. His winning time was 3 minutes 49.78, 100th slower than the time that I set in Oslo. So normally, indoor times don't count for outdoor records anyway. I mean, because they're different. The indoor
mm.
tracks are not standardized, and certainly at that time weren't the same as outdoors. But there was a little rivalry, if you want to call it that, because the only one who was listening to the hundreds of that night was myself, because I held the Irish record, so I certainly didn't want him running faster than that time. So yeah, his world record time was 3 minutes 49.78, and he was maybe the greatest indoor miler ever. I mean, I think he was the most prolific winner over all the years. That's for sure.
It's incredible. 100 off. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Great. Oh, well,
but
that's that clarified anyway.
yeah, yeah.
I won't keep you too long on this topic. I'd like to know your thoughts on obviously, we talk about margins and races nowadays, and
Yeah,
Nike are causing quite a stir with their alpha flies, alpha percentage flies, and
yeah,
I was looking at the criteria there. The World Athletics, they mandated the shoes that they have a midsole height of 40 millimeters, and
yeah,
these new alpha flies have a sole of 39.5 millimeters, and
yeah,
they have a
yeah,
carbon fiber plate.
yeah,
Before we go into, have any other how to say brands come close to it at the minute? Because I know there's quite a lot of athletes out there who are probably probably tied to New Balance and they're tied to
yeah,
Adidas, and it's
yeah.
frustrating. It's frustrating for them, I'm sure, because they probably haven't just quite matched Nike at the minute.
Yeah, I would say that's correct. So the first thing for me to say, because I don't know the audience that's listening here, is road running and track are a little different. And roads are always going to be, the beautiful thing about the track is it's standard. There are it's 400 meters around the tracks in the world, and they're exact to the millimeter. And so those margins are very tight and defined. When you get to road racing, road races, to you know what it's like. It could be, the road race is going to be different wherever
Yeah,
you run. So there's hills and valleys, and some are flat, some have the wind behind their back, etc. So when it gets to road racing, Nike have definitely pushed the envelope now, and they've definitely advantaged with the carbon fiber, which carbon fiber technology has been around for a while, but they have perfected it, and they certainly have advantaged in these shoes. I actually ran in a pair of these this morning, and
really.
they are cushiony. I mean, but I don't know enough. I'm going to say a few things about it. I don't know enough to say that the they may not help every runner the same. You might advantage more than I might because of your mechanics.
Yeah,
Because when they're a little bit springier, for sure. And I think that it's been said that they help men more than women, because if you're heavier weight, maybe they give you a little bit more spring back.
okay.
But Nike have definitely jumped the gun on this.
Mm.
Um, but I will say that we had the Olympic trials for the marathon in Atlanta in February, which I attended. And Hoka and New Balance and Saucony, several other companies now have also got carbon fiber shoes.
Mm.
And in fact, the top three in the marathon, the first one was from Hoka, and the second one was from Saucony, and then the third was Nike. So I
Okay.
think the advantages are getting minimized, and
Yeah.
people are catching up. But I think what a lot of the running pundits are really upset about is that it's just changing the records are all going to get broken with these kind of shoes on the roads. And
Yeah.
that's why I was defining the difference with track, because it may not be quite the same on the track,
Mm.
because it's you can't wear these kind of shoes on the track. It's especially in the shorter distance races. Um, but yeah, it is changing the landscape. But look, haven't things always changed? And I think some people are really upset at it. I will finally, in closing, say that world athletics has been sort of caught off guard, because just like the Castor Semenias in the world,
Mm.
and with these new shoes, world athletics were not prepared in the past to really set the standards. And it's going to take a little while before those standards can be reset by an independent body, because it changed. The evolutions are happening quickly, and the sport itself needs to be able to get ahead of it. And I think they were caught off guard here. And it would be good, I agree, if we can set a standard that it can't be changed with.
Mm.
But I look,
It's difficult.
these shoes look better than what they were running in the Olympics in 1960.
I know. It's just
For sure.
it's
Yeah.
amazing because these companies will always find little ways, and all they
But
have to have.
remember the first women couldn't run farther than 800 meters in the Olympics in 1960. That's as far as they could go. The first women's marathon was in 1984. That was the first time they would allow a woman to run a marathon.
Mm,
So there are always going to be changes, and I give the company credit that their people were working to perfect their shoes. But I think other shoe companies will catch up. But the final part of it is that they will probably the records will get a lot faster in road races for sure.
yeah, yeah. It's amazing when you look into it, like the development and the tiny little aspects of creating a shoe like it and the difference it can make. I think
Yeah,
is the record
yeah,
is it 2 hours 1 minute? There's Elliot Kipchoge, or I can't pronounce his
Kipchoge,
second name.
yeah,
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 Kipchoge. Yeah,
Kipchoge, yeah,
Kipchoge. Yeah,
yeah.
he's a Nike ambassador, isn't he? I think he
Yes, he
wears the
is.
shoe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a Nike athlete,
yeah,
and he's wearing these shoes. Yeah, I mean, um, yeah, I think I don't have all the answers to it, but certainly they need to regulate it, and
yeah.
I think it's hard to get an independent body, but the one that can balance out and correct these
Yeah,
or
because
just find an even balance. Yeah,
yeah, you want everyone at the same start point, to
yeah,
like
yeah,
if athletes are
yeah,
getting frustrated because they feel their shoe isn't
yeah,
up to the level of what's breaking records and what's setting records. It can be very
yeah,
disheartening.
yeah. But as I say, other companies are producing carbon fiber shoes now, and there's
Mm,
always going to be an advancement in technology. And if everybody can buy them, I think that's the biggest thing. If you can get them and I can't, then that's not right because you
no,
have an advantage.
yeah,
So I think as long as people have access to the products, there's always going to be an evolution in technology.
true, yeah, true. Thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
What do you consider your greatest sporting achievement?
Well, I consider my greatest sporting achievement running sub 350 for the mile, no doubt, and also being in the Olympic finals in '84. But yeah, I think the running sub 350, because I love the history of the mile, and I think about that evolution, and I think about all the runners who have run in history and how fast people have run. I take great pride in having been able to run under 350. It's a high bar to run under 4 minutes for a mile, but to have broken to run under 350, a full 10 seconds faster, for me that was it.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I think we're on the spots now. Yes. We talked earlier about your little band you put together. What's your own little party piece? If you had to do a solo, have you a song or?
Not really. I mean, it's a long, long time ago, and I was really just a part of the band. I had a piano, accordion. I mean, people at the time over here were certainly drawn to Irish music, and I could play the few jigs and reels and things like that,
Mm,
and accompany somebody on some ballads, playing the accordion. And so that's about the extent of what I did at the time.
you weren't asked to take the mic at any stage.
No, I wasn't. I
No.
wasn't the singer. No.
And would you still keep in touch with the home music scene, or is there a music scene over there now? You'd be
Yeah,
any local artists over there that you'd be listening
not
to?
really. I don't keep as much in. I mean, I love when I'm at home. If you go into some of the pubs and they have those sessions where people just come in and start playing, I love listening to the music there.
Yeah,
That is a treat, and it's fairly common, I think, isn't it?
yeah. Oh, it is absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the pubs are open anymore.
No, that's changed. A lot of people miss that now at the
Yeah,
moment, and you see a lot of
yeah,
people online now on Facebook. A lot of guys that would have
yeah,
maybe played in bars, they're doing like live shows, and it's great.
yeah.
It's great in one way, but you just can't beat that.
No, you can't.
No,
It's lovely to go in and just listen to people play music. Yeah.
I came across a
Uh,
band years ago, actually, Lucero. I think
yeah.
they're based over your neck of the woods, but I really like their music.
Yeah. I probably don't know them.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's no, I was just curious about that, and I thought you might have had an Irish song in your repertoire.
Yeah, I mean, not really. Not that I'm proficient with anymore. But
Very good, very good.
yeah,
Okay, Ray, what advice would you give to young athletes?
the best advice is to really stay with it, and just to realize that the results aren't going to come quickly, and especially if they're young, that their growth will take place at different stages. And so some people are going to be far more mature than them physically when they are young, and if they stay with it, and really if they love it, first of all, but if they stay with it, their time will come. So give it lots of time, don't be impatient, and just keep their head down and keep working, and don't get discouraged because other people are better than you when you're young, because it all evens out if you stay with it. And if you do something long enough, you will improve. And of course you could say that to everything, but I really believe that is true in athletics. And you'll run faster if you just keep training and listen to your coach. So
Great, Ray. Thanks so much.
yeah.
And Sinead, thank you so much, Ray. That was brilliant. I'm really privileged to have had you on and had such a great chat with you. So insightful, and you're a wealth of knowledge in your field, and there was a brilliant insight. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, and it's lovely to talk to somebody in Longford, especially, and you did a lot of homework even with this interview, because look, I'm aware that most people don't know very much of the running terms and times and all that kind of thing, or you know technical things, and really all that is not so important in the end. But I appreciate that you did your homework.
Oh, not at all. I found when I started looking into a few things, I got really invested in it. You know,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was I was gone down completely different routes as regards to the history of it. And I suppose that's the beauty of these conversations as well.
yeah, yeah.
But it's
They
also
are, but
it's very important that people are aware of these things as well. You know, and how they come about, and you
yeah,
know, because things have changed so drastically now, and there's so much involvement in running now, and people are so interested in it that it's
yeah,
you know
yeah. It,
it's
it is
great.
lovely to see the mass running, or the appeal of running now, because it's more like, one thing I didn't say earlier on is that, I mean, people would have been laughing at me when I was running back in that day, back in Mel's. They were like,
Probably
what
thought
are
there
you
was something
doing? You
wrong
know,
with you.
we're whistling at you, like, are you stupid? Or like, what are you
Yeah,
doing?
yeah,
You're running around, because people didn't run around a lot back then. You had traditional people went onto the pitch, you're playing football, but
yeah,
you didn't have runners running along the street, in their shorts and out there running in the middle of the country or whatever. You wouldn't see that too much. So that was, I found that a little, that was
yeah.
harder getting used to. But nowadays, everybody's running, right? So you're going to see, I bet, even in Longford, you see lots of people running on the canal and in the mall, and so there's so many people running now. It's great to see.
It's nearly the opposite now. If you're not running, they're probably wondering what's wrong with you.
Yeah, but isn't it, it's good for their health though, and it's
Yeah,
great.
it is, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that's
Um,
good to see that, and you don't have to feel like you have to be fast to run. As you can be. The funny part is I can't see myself running now, but if I could see myself running, I'd be like, look at that old guy. He's no
yeah.
good. But I can't. So I still think I'm running fast when I'm running, even though I'm not.
Yeah, and look, I know it might sound a bit deep or whatever, but like to just be able to get out and go for a jog, there's a blessing in that too, because there's so many people out there who can't even do that, and you know,
There is a
not by their
blessing. There
choice, you know,
is.
and
There
that's
you couldn't be more right, and especially I thank God every day when I can go out and run and think,
mm,
what a blessing this is. And
yeah,
my friend Frank that I talked to, I just mentioned, he's got Parkinson's, and
God,
my friend John Walker has Parkinson's too. So neither of those guys can run anymore, and so you have to be thankful for each day you have, and being able to get out and run. That's a blessing.
yeah, absolutely,
Yeah,
Ray, absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
Well, Ray, I wish you all the best for the year ahead. Hope you and the family continue to keep safe, and that things will be the help of God, up and running smoothly again. Who knows what's down the line? So again,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time and for your knowledge, and it's greatly
Well,
appreciated.
thank you, and good luck with your podcast. Sounds like
Thanks,
you're doing really well.
thanks very much, Ray. Thank you.
All right.
All the
Thanks.
best. Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.
Bye.